Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Astronaut. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps you've had one of those days where your mind feels restless, or maybe you're someone rhythm of waves and who finds peace in the mysteries that lie beneath the surface. Either way, tonight's journey is crafted especially for you. You have nothing to do now, but let your thoughts settle, your breathing deepen, and your body sink into comfort as if you're floating weightlessly on calm waters. Tonight, we're not simply learning about the ocean. We're drifting through the vast blue expanse that covers our planet, exploring hidden depths where sunlight has never touched, and discovering creatures more extraordinary than any dream. The ocean holds secrets that have remained unchanged for millions of years, ancient rhythms that continue even as we sleep, and wonders that remind us how much mystery still surrounds us in this world. We'll journey gently from sun-dappled shallows to the deepest trenches, from coral gardens teeming with life to the quiet darkness where bioluminescent creatures create their own starlight. You'll hear about migrations that span entire oceans, tiny organisms that produce most of the oxygen we breathe, and partnerships between species that have lasted for millions of years. Some of what you discover tonight may surprise you, or at the very least, spark a quiet sense of wonder as you drift towards sleep. Before we begin this peaceful exploration, if these calm oceanic journeys help you unwind or give you a tranquil way to end your day, consider liking and subscribing to the channel. It helps other restless souls find their way here too, one peaceful night at a time. Now let's begin our descent into the blue. The ocean covers more than 70% of Earth's surface. When astronauts look down at our planet from space, they see a blue marble suspended in the cosmic dark. This isn't coincidence or accident. The ocean dominates our world, stretching across 139 million square miles of Earth's surface. To put this in perspective, if you could walk across the ocean floor, you would traverse an area larger than all the continents combined, with room to spare. This vast liquid realm holds 320 million cubic miles of water, containing 96.5% of all the water on our planet. The remaining 3.5% includes all the lakes, rivers, groundwater, ice caps, and water vapor that exists on the land and in the atmosphere. The average depth of the ocean reaches nearly 12,500 feet. While we see the ocean's surface from beaches and boats, the true ocean lies far below in layers of increasing darkness and pressure. Most of the ocean exists in perpetual night, where temperatures hover just above freezing and the weight of water above creates pressures that would crush any surface dweller instantly. The deepest known point, Challenger Deep in the Mariana Trench, plunges down 36,200 feet below sea level. To imagine this depth, if Mount Everest were placed in this trench, its peak would still rest more than a mile beneath the ocean's surface. Less than 10% of the ocean has been explored by humans. Despite covering most of our planet, the ocean remains more mysterious than the surface of Mars. We have better maps of the moon than we do of our own ocean floor. This vast underwater realm contains mountains taller than the Himalayas, canyons deeper than the Grand Canyon, and plains that stretch for thousands of miles in complete darkness. Every expedition into the deep returns with discoveries that challenge what we thought we knew about life on Earth. The ocean contains an estimated 50 to 80% of all life on our planet. While land-based life captures our attention with its visibility and diversity, the true abundance of life exists beneath the waves. The ocean provides 99% of the living space on Earth, offering three-dimensional habitat from surface to seafloor. In this vast aquatic realm, life has evolved into forms both beautiful and bizarre, from microscopic organisms that drift with the currents to massive whales that traverse entire ocean basins. More than 242,000 marine species have been documented by scientists. This remarkable catalogue represents creatures ranging from the tiniest bacteria to the largest animals ever known to exist. Yet this vast inventory is likely just the beginning. Scientists estimate that perhaps 2 million marine species remain undiscovered, hidden in unexplored depths or camouflaged among the countless niches of the ocean environment. On average, researchers describe 2,332 new marine species each year, suggesting that centuries of discovery still await us beneath the waves. Marine organisms produce most of the oxygen we breathe. While we often think of forests as the lungs of our planet, the ocean's microscopic inhabitants actually generate between 50 and 80% of Earth's oxygen. Tiny floating plants called phytoplankton, along with marine algae and cyanobacteria, carry out photosynthesis on a scale that dwarfs all terrestrial plant life combined. These invisible gardens drift through the sunlit surface waters, converting carbon dioxide into oxygen and forming the base of nearly all marine food webs. The ocean is divided into 5 distinct zones based on depth and light penetration. The sunlight zone, or euphotic zone, extends from the surface down to about 650 feet, where enough light penetrates to support photosynthesis. Here, the water is warm and teeming with life, from colourful fish to floating forests of kelp. Below this lies the twilight zone, or dysphotic zone, stretching from 650 feet to 3,300 feet deep, where faint traces of sunlight create a perpetual blue dusk. Deeper still lies the midnight zone, or aphotic zone, beginning at 3,300 feet and extending to about 13,000 feet deep. Here, absolute darkness reigns, and the only light comes from the living creatures themselves through bioluminescence. The abyssal zone spans from 13,000 feet to 19,700 feet, covering vast plains of the deep sea floor. Finally, the hadal zone encompasses the deepest trenches, from 19,700 feet to the ocean's greatest depths, representing Earth's most extreme environment. Bioluminescence may be the most common form of communication on Earth. In the darkness of the deep ocean, 3/4 of all creatures possess the ability to create their own light. This biological illumination serves countless purposes: attracting prey, confusing predators, finding mates, and sending signals across the liquid void. The chemistry behind this living light involves a molecule called luciferin, which produces light when it reacts with oxygen. Most bioluminescent displays appear as blue-green light because these wavelengths travel farthest through water. Deep-sea anglerfish have perfected the art of bioluminescent hunting. These remarkable predators carry what appears to be a glowing fishing rod extending from their heads. The light isn't produced by the fish itself, but by symbiotic bacteria living within a specialized organ called the esker. The anglerfish can control the intensity of this biological lure, creating pulsing patterns that prove irresistible to curious prey in the darkness. When smaller fish approach to investigate the mysterious glow, they quickly discover they've been deceived by one of evolution's most effective traps. The stoplight loose-jaw dragonfish possesses a unique visual superpower. This remarkable predator has developed special red-emitting light organs beneath its eyes, functioning like underwater headlights. Most deep-sea creatures can only see blue light, making the dragonfish's red beams completely invisible to potential prey. Even more extraordinarily, this fish uses chlorophyll pigments, typically found in plants, inside its eyes, to detect red wavelengths of light. This gives the stoplight loosejaw the ability to hunt almost invisibly, scanning for victims with a flashlight that remains undetectable to most other deep-sea inhabitants. Coral reefs support 25% of all marine species, despite covering less than 1% of the ocean floor. These underwater cities, often called the rainforests of the sea, represent some of the most diverse ecosystems on our planet. Built by tiny coral polyps over thousands of years, these structures provide homes, nurseries, and feeding grounds for an incredible variety of marine life. From the smallest cleaner fish to massive groupers, From colourful parrotfish to graceful sea turtles, coral reefs buzz with constant activity and interaction. Coral polyps are animals, not plants, despite their appearance. Each coral colony begins as a single polyp, a tiny transparent animal with a mouth and stomach. Through a process of growth and division, this single polyp can create colonies as large as cars or houses over hundreds or thousands of years. The brilliant colours we associate with healthy coral don't come from the polyps themselves, which are actually transparent, but from millions of microscopic algae called zooxanthellae that live within their tissues. The partnership between corals and algae represents one of nature's most successful collaborations. The coral polyps provide the algae with a protected home and nutrients, while the algae produce food through photosynthesis and share it with their hosts. This symbiotic relationship is so productive that it has created some of the most vibrant ecosystems on Earth. Because photosynthesis requires sunlight, most reef-building corals live in clear, shallow waters where light can penetrate to fuel this underwater partnership. Whale migrations represent some of the longest journeys in the animal kingdom. These majestic marine mammals travel thousands of miles between their feeding and breeding grounds, following ancient routes passed down through generations. Humpback whales undertake particularly epic journeys, with some populations swimming up to 16,000 miles during their annual migrations. They can complete a 3,000-mile trip in as few as 28 days, fasting during their entire journey and living off stored energy in their fat reserves. Grey whales complete one of the most impressive migrations of any mammal. Every year, these remarkable creatures travel 12,000 miles round trip from their feeding grounds in the Arctic to the warm lagoons of Baja California, where they mate and give birth, and then back again. The precision of their navigation is extraordinary, with many individuals returning to the exact same locations where they were born when they're ready to start breeding themselves. Whales navigate using multiple environmental cues with remarkable accuracy. These marine mammals maintain directional precision within 5 degrees, and sometimes within just 1 degree, over distances of hundreds or even thousands of miles. They appear to use changes in water temperature and salinity, underwater mountain ranges and valley systems, ocean currents, and even scents detected through their large olfactory organs. Sound also plays a crucial role, as different whale populations sing distinctive regional songs that help individuals recognize when they're swimming into familiar territory. The ecological importance of whales extends far beyond their impressive migrations. As they travel through the ocean, whales fertilize marine ecosystems with their waste, boosting phytoplankton production throughout their range. This enhanced phytoplankton growth captures approximately 40% of all carbon dioxide produced globally and generates over half of the atmosphere's oxygen. By restoring whale populations, we can help restore ocean ecosystems and build resilience against climate change, allowing nature to help heal itself. Ocean tides result from the gravitational dance between Earth, Moon, and Sun. When we watch waves roll onto shore, we're witnessing the effects of gravitational forces that stretch across space to move entire oceans. The Moon's gravity creates bulges in Earth's oceans, on both the side closest to the Moon and the side farthest away, creating high tides. The low points between these bulges experience low tides, and this pattern follows the Moon as our planet rotates. The Sun also influences tides, though its effect is about half as strong as the Moon's. When the Sun, Moon, and Earth align during new or full moons, their combined gravitational pull creates especially high and low tides called spring tides. 1 week later, when the Sun and Moon are at right angles to each other, their competing influences create more moderate tides known as Eniap tides. This celestial choreography creates a predictable monthly cycle that has influenced marine life for billions of years. Many marine creatures have evolved to synchronize their lives with these lunar rhythms. The mass spawning of corals on the Great Barrier Reef occurs precisely after full moons between October and December, when billions of coral polyps release their eggs and sperm simultaneously into the water. This coordinated timing creates such a spectacular display that it can be observed from space. Countless other marine species, from certain fish to sea turtles, time their reproductive cycles to take advantage of specific tidal conditions and moonlight levels. Jellyfish have survived on Earth for over 500 million years. Before dinosaurs roamed the land, before trees grew in forests, before fungi decomposed organic matter, jellyfish drifted through ancient seas. These remarkable creatures are the oldest multi-organ animals on our planet, having survived all 5 major mass extinction events, including the Great Dying that eliminated 70% of all life on Earth. Their secret to survival lies in their elegant simplicity and their ability to blend seamlessly with their liquid environment. The bodies of jellyfish consist of 98% water. This extraordinary composition allows them to drift effortlessly through their oceanic home, requiring minimal energy for movement. They possess no brain, no blood, no lungs, and no heart, yet they navigate their world with remarkable efficiency. Instead of a brain, jellyfish rely on an elementary nervous system equipped with receptors that detect light, vibrations, and chemical changes in the surrounding water. Over 2,000 species of jellyfish have been identified, ranging from microscopic to massive. The smallest jellyfish measure just 0.5 millimeter in diameter. So tiny, they're practically invisible to the naked eye. At the other extreme, the Nomura's jellyfish can grow to over 6 feet in diameter and weigh up to 440 pounds, creating an underwater spectacle that must be seen to be believed. Scientists estimate that many more species await discovery in the unexplored depths of our oceans. These ancient drifters play vital roles in ocean ecosystems. As jellyfish move through different layers of the water column, they transport essential nutrients like nitrogen and phosphorus throughout the marine environment. They help control populations of smaller creatures by feeding on fish larvae and eggs, maintaining the delicate balance that keeps ocean ecosystems healthy. Many young fish actually seek shelter beneath jellyfish, using their translucent umbrella-shaped bells as mobile hiding places while they grow. Jellyfish employ sophisticated hunting strategies despite their simple appearance. Their tentacles contain specialized stinging cells called nematocysts, tiny compartments housing needle-like stingers. When triggered by contact, these chambers open rapidly, allowing ocean water to rush in and shoot the stinger outward while releasing venom. Some species arrange their tentacles in twisted spiral patterns to create deadly traps, while others simply drag their tentacles behind them like living fishing nets as they drift with the currents. The lion's mane jellyfish stands as one of the ocean's most impressive creatures. These magnificent animals represent the largest known jellyfish species, with tentacles that can extend over 100 feet in length, longer than a blue whale. Found in the cold waters of the Arctic, North Pacific, and North Atlantic oceans, they create underwater spectacles that few humans have witnessed in their full glory. Their flowing tentacles create ethereal displays as they pulse through the water, resembling underwater forests swaying in an invisible breeze. Marine microorganisms form the invisible foundation of all ocean life. These microscopic inhabitants constitute between 70 and 90% of the total biomass in the sea, making them the most abundant living things in the largest environment on Earth. Despite their tiny size, these organisms drive every major process in marine ecosystems, from the production of oxygen to the cycling of carbon, nitrogen, phosphorus, and other essential elements throughout the ocean. Diatoms, tiny single-celled algae, generate about 20% of the oxygen produced on our planet each year. These microscopic powerhouses create intricate glass-like shells called frustules, which accumulate on the ocean floor in layers that can reach 0.5 mile deep. Each year, diatoms process over 6.7 billion metric tons of silicon from seawater to construct their elaborate homes, contributing nearly half of all organic material found in the oceans. Marine viruses outnumber all other life forms in the sea. In each milliliter of seawater, between 1 million and 10 million viruses drift unseen, representing about 15 times more viral particles than bacterial and archaeal cells combined. Most of these viruses are bacteriophages, harmless to plants and animals but essential for regulating marine ecosystems. They infect and destroy bacteria, recycling carbon and releasing organic molecules that stimulate fresh bacterial and algal growth throughout the water column. These invisible viral communities kill approximately 20% of marine bacterial biomass each day. This constant cycle of infection, death, and renewal helps maintain the delicate balance of nutrients in seawater, while contributing to the biological pump that transports carbon to the deep ocean. The organic molecules released from destroyed bacterial cells become food for other microorganisms, creating an intricate web of recycling that has operated for billions of years. The deep sea represents Earth's largest living space, yet remains our planet's least explored frontier. 85% of the ocean's area and 90% of its volume exist in permanent darkness, where temperatures hover near freezing and pressures reach crushing extremes. This vast realm extends from depths of about 650 feet, where sunlight fades to nothing, down to the deepest trenches that plunge over 36,000 feet below the surface. In this alien environment, life has evolved remarkable adaptations to survive conditions that would instantly destroy most surface-dwelling creatures. Strange fish with transparent heads drift through the darkness. Tube worms cluster around volcanic vents, thriving in waters hot enough to melt lead. Vampire squid turn themselves inside out when threatened, while giant isopods scavenge the sea floor like underwater armadillos the size of footballs. The pressure in the deepest parts of the ocean reaches over 1,000 times greater than at sea level. To survive in this crushing environment, deep-sea creatures have evolved bodies filled with specialized proteins and cellular structures that function under extreme pressure. Many lack gas-filled swim bladders that would be compressed to nothing at such depths, instead relying on oil-filled livers or other adaptations to maintain neutral buoyancy in their high-pressure world. Hydrothermal vents create oases of life in the deep ocean desert. These underwater geysers spew superheated water rich in minerals and chemicals, creating unique ecosystems that exist independent of sunlight. Giant tube worms, some reaching 8 feet in length, cluster around these vents in dense colonies. They have no mouth or stomach, instead relying on symbiotic bacteria living within their bodies to convert the vent's chemical energy into food. These vent communities represent some of the most recently discovered ecosystems on Earth. First found in 1977, the creatures living here depend not on photosynthesis, but on chemosynthesis, a process where bacteria convert chemicals like hydrogen sulfide into energy. This discovery revolutionized our understanding of life on Earth and opened new possibilities for where life might exist elsewhere in the universe. The ocean's twilight zone, extending from about 650 feet to 3,300 feet deep, experiences the largest migration on Earth every single day. Each evening, billions of small fish, squid, jellyfish, and crustaceans rise from the depths to feed in surface waters under cover of darkness. Before dawn, they descend again to hide in the dimly lit depths, creating a massive vertical migration that transfers nutrients and energy throughout the water column. This daily migration involves more biomass than exists in all the world's forests combined. The creatures participating in this journey include lanternfish, which make up 65% of all deep-sea fish biomass, along with countless small squid, shrimp-like krill, and other small swimmers. Their synchronized movement creates layers in the water so dense that early sonar operators mistook them for the seafloor itself. Siphonophores create some of the longest creatures in the ocean. These colonial animals consist of hundreds or thousands of individual organisms working together as a single entity. The Portuguese man-o'-war, often mistaken for a jellyfish, represents one of the most familiar siphonophores. In the deep sea, some siphonophore species create chains of connected individuals that can stretch over 150 feet in length, making them longer than blue whales and among the longest creatures on Earth. Each individual in a siphonophore colony specializes in different functions. Some focus on digestion, others on reproduction, still others on movement or defense. Together, they create a living chain that drifts through the water like an underwater constellation, pulsing with bioluminescent light as it moves through the darkness of the deep ocean. Ocean currents transport heat around our planet like a global conveyor belt. The Gulf Stream alone carries warm water from the tropical Atlantic northward at a rate of 30 billion gallons per second, moderating temperatures along the eastern coast of North America and Western Europe. Without this massive river within the sea, London would have a climate similar to northern Canada, and New York would experience much harsher winters. These oceanic rivers follow predictable patterns driven by differences in water temperature, salinity, and the rotation of the Earth. The thermohaline circulation, sometimes called the global conveyor belt, moves water throughout all the world's oceans over a cycle that takes about 1,000 years to complete. This circulation helps distribute heat, nutrients, and dissolved gases throughout the marine environment, influencing climate patterns and supporting life in every corner of the sea. As we drift deeper into these oceanic mysteries, the boundaries between the known and unknown begin to blur. The gentle rhythm of currents, the slow pulse of tides, and the ancient migrations of countless creatures create a symphony of motion that has continued for millions of years. In this vast blue realm, time moves differently, measured not in hours or days, but in the patient cycles of seasons and the endless circulation of water around our planet. The ocean floor holds landscapes more dramatic than any mountain range on land. Beneath the waves lie underwater volcanoes that dwarf Mount Everest, their peaks rising over 30,000 feet from the abyssal plains. The Mid-Atlantic Ridge, a massive underwater mountain chain, stretches for 10,000 miles along the ocean floor, slowly spreading apart as new seafloor is born from molten rock. These submarine mountains create their own weather patterns in the deep, directing currents and creating upwelling zones that bring nutrients from the depths to surface waters. Seamounts, isolated underwater peaks that rise from the ocean floor, serve as stepping stones for migrating marine life. These submerged mountains create unique ecosystems, often crowned with deep-sea corals and sponge gardens that have grown undisturbed for centuries. The Hawaiian island chain represents just the visible tips of a massive underwater mountain range, with most of these volcanic peaks hidden beneath thousands of feet of water. Underwater canyons carve through the continental margins, creating pathways deeper than the Grand Canyon. The Monterey Canyon off California plunges over 12,000 feet below sea level, its walls providing habitat for countless deep-sea creatures. These submarine valleys channel nutrient-rich sediments from shallow waters to the deep ocean, creating underwater rivers of organic material that feed entire communities in the abyss. Salt makes up about 3.5% of seawater by weight, but this simple statistic masks the ocean's complex chemistry. Every cubic million tons of dissolved salt, along with traces mile of seawater, contains over 120 of nearly every element found on Earth. Gold drifts through seawater in concentrations so low that extracting it remains economically impossible. Yet the total amount dissolved in all the world's oceans exceeds all the gold ever mined by humans. The ocean's salinity varies throughout its depths and across different regions. Surface waters in tropical areas become more concentrated through evaporation, while polar regions receive constant influxes of fresh water from melting ice and precipitation. The Mediterranean Sea contains some of the saltiest water on Earth, while the Baltic Sea remains relatively fresh due to limited connection with the open ocean and abundant freshwater input from surrounding rivers. Deep ocean water moves incredibly slowly, taking centuries to complete its journey around the globe. A drop of water sinking to the bottom of the Pacific Ocean may not return to the surface for 1,600 years. During this long journey, it travels through complete darkness, carrying dissolved nutrients and gases from one side of the planet to the other. This patient circulation helps maintain the chemical balance of seawater and distributes essential elements throughout the marine environment. Marine snow drifts constantly through the water column, like an underwater blizzard. This organic precipitation consists of dead plankton, fecal pellets, bacteria, and other biological debris that sinks slowly toward the seafloor. To deep-sea creatures, marine snow represents the primary source of food, a gentle rain of nutrition falling from the productive surface waters far above. The journey from surface to seafloor can take weeks or months, during which countless organisms feed on these sinking particles. Some particles aggregate into larger clumps as they descend, creating a more substantial meal for filter-feeding creatures in the depths. The constant shower of marine snow helps explain how complex ecosystems can thrive in the apparent desert of the deep ocean. Without this biological precipitation, the deep sea would be largely barren, unable to support the remarkable diversity of life found in even the most remote ocean trenches. Giant tube worms, some reaching lengths of 8 feet, have no mouth, stomach, or digestive system. These remarkable creatures live entirely through their partnership with chemosynthetic bacteria housed within specialized organs in their bodies. The bacteria convert hydrogen sulfide and other chemicals from hydrothermal vents into organic compounds, sharing this food with their tube worm hosts. This symbiotic relationship allows these giants to thrive in an environment where conventional food sources don't exist. The discovery of hydrothermal vent communities fundamentally changed our understanding of life's possibilities. These oases of biological activity exist in complete independence from solar energy, powered instead by the Earth's internal heat. The water temperatures around active vents can exceed 750 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to melt lead, yet just inches away, the surrounding seawater remains near freezing. Vent shrimp cluster in dense masses around these underwater geysers, their modified eyes detecting the faint infrared glow of superheated water. These specialized crustaceans have evolved unique proteins that remain stable at extreme temperatures, allowing them to thrive in conditions that would instantly cook most other forms of life. Their discovery suggested that similar life forms might exist around hydrothermal vents on other worlds, opening new possibilities in the search for extraterrestrial life. The Mariana Trench represents Earth's final frontier, deeper than Mount Everest is tall. At its deepest point, Challenger Deep, the seafloor lies 36,200 feet below sea level. The pressure at this depth exceeds 1,000 times atmospheric pressure at sea level, equivalent to having 50 jumbo jets pressing down on every square meter. Despite these crushing conditions, life persists even here, in forms specially adapted to Earth's most extreme environment. Barotrauma affects most surface-dwelling creatures if they descend too rapidly into the deep ocean. The increasing pressure compresses air-filled organs, potentially causing fatal injuries. Deep-sea fish avoid this problem by lacking swim bladders entirely, instead using oil-filled livers or other pressure-resistant adaptations to maintain their position in the water column. When these deep-sea creatures are brought rapidly to the surface, the reverse effect occurs, often causing their bodies to expand dramatically, as internal pressures adjust to the lower surface pressure. Xenophyophores, among the largest single-celled organisms on Earth, create delicate structures on the deep ocean floor. These giant protozoans can grow larger than dinner plates, constructing intricate shells from sediment particles and organic debris. Despite their impressive size, they remain single cells, representing some of the most extreme examples of cellular gigantism in nature. Their elaborate forms create microhabitats for smaller organisms in the otherwise barren expanses of the abyssal seafloor. The deep ocean maintains remarkably stable temperatures year-round. Below depths of about 3,000 feet, water temperatures hover between 35 and 39 degrees Fahrenheit, regardless of surface conditions. This thermal stability creates a reliable environment for deep-sea creatures, allowing them to adapt to consistent conditions rather than dealing with the temperature fluctuations common in surface waters. The coldest ocean water is found in polar regions, where temperatures can drop to 28 degrees Fahrenheit without freezing due to salt's effect on the freezing point of water. Abyssal plains cover more area than all the world's continents combined. These vast underwater deserts stretch for thousands of miles across the deep ocean floor, broken only by occasional seamounts or abyssal hills. The sediment covering these plains accumulates incredibly slowly, sometimes taking thousands of years to build up just a few inches. Cores drilled from abyssal sediments reveal Earth's climate history stretching back millions of years, preserved in layers of microscopic shells and dust. Manganese nodules grow like potatoes on the deep ocean floor, forming over millions of years through the slow accumulation of metals around small objects like shark teeth or whale bones. These polymetallic concretions contain valuable metals including copper, nickel, and cobalt, leading to interest in deep-sea mining. However, the extreme slow growth of these nodules means that harvesting them would essentially be mining a non-renewable resource that took millennia to form. Brine pools create underwater lakes within the ocean itself. These dense concentrations of salt water sink to the seafloor, forming distinct boundaries with the overlying seawater. The density difference is so pronounced that submarines can actually float on the surface of these underwater lakes, just as a cork floats on the surface of a pond. Many of these brine pools prove toxic to most marine life, creating underwater dead zones surrounded by the normal diversity of deep-sea creatures. Some brine pools support unique ecosystems adapted to their extreme salinity. Specialized bacteria thrive in these conditions, forming the base of food webs that include tube worms, crabs, and fish species found nowhere else on Earth. The edges of brine pools often teem with life, as organisms gather to feed on the bacteria and organic matter concentrated in these unusual environments. Cold seeps represent another type of deep-sea oasis, where hydrocarbons like methane and hydrogen sulfide leak from the seafloor. Unlike the dramatic eruptions of hydrothermal vents, cold seeps release their chemicals slowly and steadily over decades or centuries. These gradual emissions support communities of chemosynthetic bacteria, which in turn feed tube worms, clams, and other specialized creatures adapted to these unique conditions. The slow, steady nature of cold seeps creates more stable ecosystems than the boom and bust cycles often seen around hydrothermal vents. Some cold seep communities persist for hundreds of years, developing complex relationships between species and creating underwater oases that support remarkable biodiversity in the deep ocean desert. Whale falls create temporary islands of abundance on the deep sea floor. When a whale dies and sinks to the ocean bottom, its massive carcass provides enough food to support entire ecosystems for decades. The decomposition process occurs in stages, first attracting mobile scavengers like hagfish and sleeper sharks, then supporting communities of bacteria and worms that break down the remaining soft tissues. Eventually, bacteria begin breaking down the oils in whale bones, creating conditions similar to cold seeps that can support chemosynthetic communities for 50 years or more. These whalefall ecosystems serve as stepping stones for deep-sea creatures, allowing species to disperse across the vast distances of the ocean floor by hopping from one whale carcass to another. Glass sponge reefs create underwater forests in the deep ocean, growing incredibly slowly over thousands of years. These remarkable structures built by sponges with skeletons made of silica glass, can reach heights of several feet and form reef systems spanning many acres. The oldest glass sponge reefs are thought to be over 9,000 years old, making them among the oldest living structures on Earth. Each glass sponge is a marvel of biological engineering, filtering enormous volumes of seawater through its porous body to extract microscopic food particles. A single large sponge can process thousands of gallons of water each day, cleaning the surrounding environment while building its intricate glass skeleton one spicule at a time. Deep-sea mushrooms, recently discovered organisms that challenge our understanding of life's classification, grow on the seafloor like underwater toadstools. These mysterious creatures possess characteristics that don't fit neatly into any known taxonomic group, suggesting they may represent an entirely new branch of life. Their discovery reminds us how much we still don't know about the organisms sharing our planet. The deep ocean's food web operates on principles completely different from surface ecosystems. With no plants to capture solar energy, deep-sea life depends on the rain of organic matter from above, or on chemosynthetic bacteria that derive energy from chemical reactions. This creates ecosystems where the primary producers are bacteria rather than plants, supporting food webs that can exist in complete independence from photosynthesis. Energy moves through deep-sea food webs much more slowly than in surface ecosystems. Deep-sea creatures typically grow slowly, reproduce infrequently, and live much longer than their shallow water relatives. Some deep-sea fish may live for over a century, while deep-sea corals can survive for thousands of years, creating biological archives that record centuries of ocean history in their skeletons. The midnight zone supports a surprising diversity of predators, despite its apparent emptiness. Giant squid, possibly reaching lengths of 40 feet or more, hunt in these dark waters. Their only traces the circular scars they leave on the skin of sperm whales brave enough to dive deep enough to hunt them. Six-gill sharks, living fossils that have remained virtually unchanged for 200 million years, patrol these depths like underwater dragons, occasionally rising to shallower waters under cover of darkness. Vampire squid inhabit the oxygen minimum zones of the deep ocean, regions where dissolved oxygen levels drop so low that most other animals cannot survive. Despite their fearsome name, these creatures don't suck blood, but instead feed on marine snow and organic debris. When threatened, they can turn themselves inside out, displaying their dark, spiny exterior as a deterrent to potential predators. The deep ocean's darkness is not absolute. Many creatures create their own light through bioluminescence, turning the depths into a living constellation of stars. Some fish use photophores arranged in species-specific patterns, creating underwater signatures that help individuals recognize their own kind in the darkness. Others employ bioluminescence as a burglar alarm, lighting up when attacked to attract larger predators that might consume their attackers. As our journey through these oceanic depths continues, the distinction between the possible and impossible begins to fade. In these remote reaches of our planet, life has found ways to thrive under conditions once thought too extreme to support any living thing. The gentle fall of marine snow, the patient circulation of ancient currents, and the slow growth of glass sponge gardens create a rhythm as old as the ocean itself, continuing its eternal dance in the darkness far below the sunlit surface we know so well. The ocean's magnetic field influences the migration patterns of countless marine species in ways scientists are only beginning to understand. Sea turtles navigate across thousands of miles of open ocean using the planet's magnetic lines as an invisible highway system. Young turtles imprint on the magnetic signature of their birth beaches, carrying this information with them as they drift across entire ocean basins on currents that may carry them for years before they return as adults to the exact stretch of sand where their lives began. Salmon possess an even more remarkable magnetic memory, able to distinguish between magnetic signatures that differ by less than 1%. This extraordinary sensitivity allows them to navigate from the open ocean back to the specific stream where they were born, sometimes traveling hundreds of miles upstream through branching river systems to reach their natal waters. The magnetic maps encoded in their brains guide them through journeys that would challenge the most sophisticated human navigation systems. Even tiny zooplankton respond to magnetic cues, adjusting their vertical migrations in the water column based on magnetic field variations. These microscopic creatures, no larger than a grain of sand, carry within their simple bodies the ability to sense Earth's magnetic field and use this information to coordinate their daily movements between the surface and the depths. The ocean's chemistry changes dramatically with depth, creating distinct layers like an underwater atmosphere. The oxygen minimum zone, occurring at depths between 1,000 and 4,000 feet in many parts of the ocean, contains so little dissolved oxygen that only specially adapted creatures can survive. This zone acts as a barrier for many marine species, effectively dividing the ocean into separate worlds above and below this oxygen-poor layer. Below the oxygen minimum zone, cold, oxygen-rich water flows along the seafloor, carrying dissolved gases from polar regions where they were absorbed at the surface thousands of years ago. This deep water maintains its chemical signature as it travels around the globe, providing life-sustaining oxygen to creatures living in the deepest parts of the ocean. Carbon dioxide concentrations vary throughout the water column, with the highest levels often found at intermediate depths where organic matter decomposes. This creates a carbon maximum zone where the breakdown of sinking organic particles releases stored carbon dioxide back into the water. The ocean holds 50 times more carbon dioxide than the atmosphere, making it a crucial component of Earth's climate system. Methane seeps from the seafloor create unique ecosystems powered by this simple hydrocarbon. Bacteria consume the methane directly, converting it into organic matter and forming thick bacterial mats that carpet the seafloor around seepage sites. These bacterial communities support tube worms, clams, and other creatures that have evolved to thrive in methane-rich environments. Some methane seeps create underwater geysers, shooting plumes of gas-rich water high into the water column. These methane plumes can rise hundreds of feet before dissolving into the surrounding seawater, creating temporary oases of chemical energy that attract specialized communities of bacteria and the animals that feed on them. The ocean's pH varies with depth and location, creating acidic and alkaline zones that influence which creatures can survive in different areas. Surface waters tend to be more alkaline due to photosynthesis by marine plants, while deeper waters become more acidic as organic matter decomposes and releases acids into the water column. Hydrothermal vent fields create some of the most chemically extreme environments in the ocean. The water emerging from active vents contains concentrations of hydrogen sulfide, heavy metals, and other chemicals that would be toxic to most life forms. Yet these chemical cocktails support some of the most productive ecosystems in the deep sea, proving that life can adapt to almost any environmental condition given enough time. Some vent sites produce water so acidic it can dissolve metal, while others create alkaline conditions more extreme than household bleach. The rapid mixing of these extreme fluids with normal seawater creates chemical gradients that different organisms exploit, with each species occupying its own narrow chemical niche within the larger vent ecosystem. Deep-sea corals build reefs in complete darkness, creating three-dimensional structures that provide habitat for countless other organisms. Unlike their shallow water relatives, these corals don't depend on symbiotic algae for nutrition. Instead, they capture food particles from the water column using their polyps, growing incredibly slowly to form reefs that may take thousands of years to develop. Cold water coral reefs can extend for miles along the seafloor, creating underwater mountain ranges built entirely by living organisms. These structures provide essential habitat for deep-sea fish, creating nursery areas and feeding grounds in what would otherwise be relatively barren seafloor. The three-dimensional complexity of coral reefs increases biodiversity by creating countless niches and hiding places for smaller organisms. Some deep-sea corals live for thousands of years, making them among the oldest living organisms on Earth. These ancient creatures grow so slowly that individual polyps may add only millimeters to their skeletons each year. Their long lives make them valuable archives of ocean history, with their skeletons recording changes in water chemistry, temperature, and pollution levels over centuries. Black corals, despite their name, often appear white, yellow, or red in life. These deep-sea corals grow in tree-like formations that can reach heights of several feet, their branches swaying gently in deep-sea currents. The black color refers to their protein-based skeleton, which appears dark when the living tissue is removed. Bamboo corals segment their skeletons into alternating hard and flexible sections, allowing them to bend with deep-sea currents without breaking. This adaptation helps them survive in environments where strong currents might snap more rigid structures. The flexible joints give these corals a bamboo-like appearance that inspired their common name. Sea spiders, despite their name, are not true spiders, but represent an ancient group of marine arthropods found throughout the ocean depths. These eight-legged creatures range from tiny specimens smaller than a pinky nail to giants with leg spans exceeding 2 feet. Deep-sea sea spiders often possess enormously long legs relative to their body size, giving them an ethereal, almost ghostly appearance as they walk across the sea floor. Many sea spiders exhibit a phenomenon called gigantism, growing much larger than their shallow water relatives. This deep-sea gigantism affects numerous groups of organisms, with deep-sea isopods reaching the size of footballs, amphipods growing as large as small dogs, and sea spiders achieving proportions that would seem impossible for their delicate bodies. The reasons for deep-sea gigantism remain partially mysterious, but scientists suspect it relates to the cold temperatures, high pressure, and limited food availability that characterize deep-sea environments. Growing large may help these creatures conserve energy and survive long periods between meals, while the cold temperatures and high pressure may affect cellular processes in ways that favor larger body sizes. Giant isopods scavenge the deep-sea floor like underwater armadillos, their segmented bodies protected by thick armor-like plates. These remarkable crustaceans can survive without food for months or even years, entering a state of near dormancy when prey becomes scarce. When food does become available, they can consume enormous quantities, sometimes eating so much they become unable to move. Deep-sea amphipods, related to the tiny beach hoppers found in shallow waters, grow to extraordinary sizes in the depths. Some species reach lengths of over a foot, making them among the largest amphipods in the world. These oversized relatives of small shrimp-like creatures demonstrate how the deep-sea environment can dramatically alter the evolutionary trajectory of entire groups of organisms. Snailfish hold the current record for the deepest living fish, with species discovered thriving at depths exceeding 26,000 feet in ocean trenches. These remarkable fish have adapted to crushing pressures that would instantly kill most other vertebrates, their bodies lacking gas-filled swim bladders that would collapse under such extreme conditions. Instead, they maintain their position in the water column through specialized proteins and cellular adaptations that function under pressure. The deepest living snailfish possess translucent bodies and enlarged fins that help them maneuver in the high-pressure environment of ocean trenches. Their bones are poorly mineralized compared to shallow water fish, giving them a somewhat gelatinous consistency that helps them withstand the crushing pressure of their deep-sea home. Cusk eels represent another group of fish that has successfully colonized the deepest parts of the ocean. These elongated fish, resembling underwater snakes, have been found living at depths where the pressure exceeds 1,000 times atmospheric pressure at sea level. Their success in these extreme environments demonstrates the remarkable adaptability of vertebrate life. Trench ecosystems support unique communities of organisms found nowhere else on Earth. These deepest parts of the ocean act as isolated islands of evolution, where species evolve in isolation from the rest of the marine world. Many trench species are endemic, found only in single trenches or even specific regions within trenches. The Mariana Trench, the deepest known part of the ocean, supports at least 400 known species despite its extreme conditions. This remarkable diversity includes everything from microscopic bacteria to fish, crustaceans, and even some surprising visitors like sea cucumbers and xenophirefoils that thrive in this crushing environment. Ocean trenches form where tectonic plates collide, with one plate sliding beneath another in a process called subduction. This geological activity creates the deepest parts of the ocean, while also generating earthquakes and volcanic activity. The trenches themselves are relatively narrow features, often only a few miles wide, but stretching for hundreds or thousands of miles along the edges of continents. The Peru-Chile Trench extends for over 3,000 miles along the western coast of South America, making it one of the longest continuous trenches in the world. Despite its great length, this trench remains largely unexplored, with scientists estimating that less than 1% of its area has been surveyed in detail. The Japan Trench played a tragic role in human history when movement along its edges generated the massive earthquake and tsunami that devastated Japan in 2011. This event reminded us that the deep ocean remains connected to life on land through the geological processes that shape our planet's surface. Underwater avalanches, called turbidity currents, rush down the walls of ocean trenches at speeds exceeding 40 miles per hour. These underwater landslides carry sediments and organic matter from shallow waters into the deepest parts of the ocean, providing food for trench ecosystems while carving channels and canyons into the seafloor. The Mediterranean Sea contains some of the deepest brine pools in the world, where ancient salt deposits create underwater lakes with salinity levels 10 times higher than normal seawater. These extreme environments support unique bacterial communities and serve as natural laboratories for studying life under extreme conditions. Haloclines mark the boundaries between water masses of different salinity, creating invisible barriers in the ocean that affect the distribution of marine life. These salinity gradients can be so sharp that they act like underwater walls, preventing the mixing of different water masses and creating distinct ecological zones. The Red Sea represents one of the saltiest large bodies of water on Earth, with salinity levels reaching 4.1% compared to the global ocean average of 3.5%. This high salinity results from the sea's location in an arid region with high evaporation rates and limited connection to the open ocean. Hypersaline pools in the Gulf of Mexico create underwater deserts where few organisms can survive. These brine pools, formed by the dissolution of underground salt deposits, maintain salinity levels that would instantly dehydrate most marine creatures. The few species that can tolerate these conditions have evolved specialized mechanisms to regulate their internal salt concentration. Some bacteria thrive in hypersaline conditions, forming colorful mats that carpet the edges of brine pools. These extremophile bacteria represent some of the most salt-tolerant organisms on Earth, capable of surviving in conditions that would be lethal to virtually all other forms of life. Temperature stratification divides the ocean into distinct thermal layers, each with its own characteristic communities of organisms. The thermocline, a region of rapid temperature change, acts as a barrier that separates warm surface waters from cold deep waters. This thermal boundary influences the distribution of nutrients, dissolved gases, and marine life throughout the water column. Seasonal thermoclines develop in temperate regions during summer months, creating temporary barriers that affect the movement of nutrients and organisms between surface and deeper waters. These seasonal changes influence everything from plankton blooms to fish migrations, demonstrating how physical oceanography shapes biological processes. The permanent thermocline in tropical regions creates a stable barrier that prevents the mixing of surface and deep waters year-round. This thermal stratification helps explain why tropical surface waters often appear crystal clear, but relatively poor in nutrients, while the nutrient-rich deep waters remain isolated below the thermocline. Temperature inversions occasionally occur in polar regions, where warm, salty water flows beneath colder, fresher surface water. These unusual conditions create upside-down temperature profiles that challenge conventional understanding of ocean stratification and create unique habitats for specialized organisms. Polynya are areas of open water surrounded by sea ice, creating oases of productivity in otherwise ice-covered polar regions. These openings in the ice allow sunlight to penetrate the water and wind to mix the surface layers, creating conditions that support abundant phytoplankton growth and attract marine mammals and seabirds. Some polynyas persist year-round due to upwelling of warmer deep water or strong currents that prevent ice formation. These permanent openings serve as crucial refugia for Arctic and Antarctic wildlife, providing access to the ocean's surface even during the harshest winter conditions. The formation of sea ice concentrates salt in the surrounding water, creating dense, cold brine that sinks toward the seafloor. This process, called brine rejection, helps drive the global circulation of deep ocean waters and plays a crucial role in the planet's climate system. Anchor ice forms on the seafloor in polar regions, creating underwater ice forests that can extend for miles. This unusual phenomenon occurs when supercooled water freezes around objects on the bottom, creating delicate ice formations that provide temporary habitat for specialized organisms adapted to these extreme conditions. Ice algae grow within the matrix of sea ice, creating hidden ecosystems that support entire food webs in polar regions. These microscopic plants can achieve high concentrations within the ice, turning the bottom surfaces of ice floes into underwater prairies that feed krill, fish, and other marine organisms. The seasonal retreat of sea ice triggers massive plankton blooms as sunlight reaches nutrient-rich waters that have been locked beneath ice during winter months. These ice edge blooms represent some of the most productive ecosystems in the ocean, supporting the complex food webs that characterize polar marine environments. Icebergs create mobile ecosystems as they drift through the ocean, carrying terrestrial sediments and nutrients far from their origins. The melting of these floating mountains releases fresh water and minerals into the surrounding seawater, creating temporary oases of productivity in otherwise nutrient-poor regions of the ocean. Tabular icebergs carved from Antarctic ice shelves can drift for years through the Southern Ocean, some reaching sizes larger than small countries. These massive ice islands create their own weather patterns and ocean currents as they drift, influencing marine ecosystems across vast areas of the southern seas. The underside of large icebergs often supports unique communities of organisms adapted to the cold, freshwater environment created by melting ice. These inverted ecosystems exist in a world of perpetual twilight, illuminated only by the filtered light passing through the translucent ice above. Glacial flour, the fine sediment created by glacial erosion, turns some polar waters into milky, turquoise-colored seas. This suspended sediment affects light penetration and can influence the distribution of marine organisms, creating unique optical conditions that characterize glacially influenced marine environments. Fjords represent drowned glacial valleys that create some of the most spectacular marine environments on Earth. These deep, narrow inlets often contain multiple water masses separated by sills, creating complex circulation patterns and diverse habitats within relatively small geographic areas. The deep waters of many fjords remain isolated from the open ocean for months or years at a time, creating conditions that can become depleted in oxygen or enriched in nutrients. These semi-enclosed systems serve as natural laboratories for studying marine processes and often support unique assemblages of organisms. Glacial marine termini, where glaciers meet the sea. create dynamic environments characterized by constant change. The grinding of ice against rock, the carving of icebergs, and the input of fresh water and sediments create challenging conditions that only specially adapted organisms can tolerate. Underwater ice caves form where glaciers extend into the sea, creating cathedral-like spaces filled with impossibly blue light filtered through thick ice. These temporary caverns provide shelter for marine organisms and create some of the most beautiful and ephemeral habitats in the ocean. As we continue our gentle descent through these polar waters, the interplay between ice and sea creates a world of constant transformation. The slow advance and retreat of glaciers, the seasonal formation and melting of sea ice, and the patient circulation of cold, dense waters create rhythms that have shaped polar ecosystems for millions of years. In these remote regions where ice meets ocean, life persists in forms both delicate and hardy, adapted to conditions that exist nowhere else on our blue planet. The Arctic Ocean remains frozen for much of the year, yet beneath its icy surface lies a world of surprising abundance. Arctic cod gather in massive schools beneath the ice, their antifreeze proteins preventing ice crystals from forming in their blood. These remarkable fish can survive in water temperatures that would kill most other species, thriving in an environment where the boundary between liquid and solid constantly shifts. Narwhals navigate through leads in the pack ice with echolocations so precise they can detect breathing holes from miles away. These unicorns of the sea use their distinctive tusks not as weapons, but as sensitive organs capable of detecting changes in water pressure, temperature, and salinity. Their spiral tusks, actually elongated teeth, contain millions of nerve endings that help them navigate the complex underwater landscape of the Arctic Ocean. The Greenland shark holds the record as the longest living vertebrate on Earth. These massive predators, reaching lengths of 20 feet or more, grow so slowly that they don't reach sexual maturity until they're over 100 years old. Some specimens are estimated to be over 400 years old, making them living witnesses to centuries of Arctic history. They move through the frigid waters with deliberate slowness, their metabolism so reduced by the cold that they require very little food to survive. Polar bears depend entirely on sea ice for hunting, spending months traveling across frozen seas in pursuit of seals. A single adult bear may roam across territories larger than some small countries, following the shifting ice edge as seasons change. Their massive paws act as snowshoes on ice and paddles in water, while their dense fur provides insulation so effective that they can overheat at temperatures well below freezing. Walruses gather in massive herds on ice floes, using their tusks as ice picks to haul their massive bodies out of frigid waters. These tusks continue growing throughout their lives, with some reaching lengths of over 3 feet. The largest males can weigh over 4,000 pounds, making them among the most massive pinnipeds in the Arctic. Their thick blubber layer provides insulation, while also serving as an energy reserve during long periods when food is scarce. Ringed seals create breathing holes in sea ice by scratching with their claws, maintaining these openings throughout the winter months. Each seal may maintain several holes across its territory, ensuring access to air even when ice thickness reaches several feet. These small seals represent the primary prey species for polar bears, making their ice hole maintenance crucial for Arctic food webs. Arctic terns undertake the longest migration of any bird, traveling roughly 44,000 miles annually from Arctic to Antarctic and back again. These remarkable birds experience 2 summers each year, following the midnight sun from pole to pole. Their journey takes them across every ocean, yet they return to the same nesting sites in the Arctic with precision that rivals the most sophisticated navigation systems. Bowhead whales possess the thickest blubber of any whale species, with layers reaching over 18 inches thick. This insulation allows them to thrive in Arctic waters year-round, using their massive heads to break through ice up to 2 feet thick when they need to breathe. Some bowhead whales are estimated to be over 200 years old, with at least one specimen showing evidence of a 19th century harpoon embedded in its flesh. The midnight sun creates continuous daylight for months in polar regions, driving intense phytoplankton blooms when ice retreats. During these brief periods of productivity, the Arctic Ocean transforms from a frozen desert into one of the most biologically active regions on Earth. Microscopic algae multiply rapidly in the constant sunlight, supporting food webs that sustain millions of seabirds, marine mammals, and fish. Polar night brings months of darkness to the Arctic Ocean, yet life continues in ways that challenge our understanding of polar ecosystems. Some organisms enter dormancy during the dark months, while others remain active, feeding on stored energy or organic matter that drifts down from more productive regions. The darkness creates a world lit only by bioluminescence and the occasional aurora dancing across the ice above. Arctic char survive being frozen solid in shallow ponds, their bodies producing antifreeze compounds that prevent cellular damage during the freezing process. When temperatures rise, these remarkable fish simply thaw out and resume normal activities. This extraordinary adaptation allows them to colonize habitats that would be uninhabitable for most other fish species. Ribbon seals sport distinctive markings that make them among the most visually striking pinnipeds in the Arctic. Adult males develop bold white stripes against dark fur, creating patterns so distinctive that individual seals can be identified from their markings alone. These elusive seals spend most of their lives in open water, coming to ice only to give birth and molt. Bearded seals grow whiskers so sensitive they can detect fish movement through vibrations in the water. These impressive moustaches, technically called vibrissae, contain thousands of nerve endings that help seals locate prey in dark or murky water. The longest whiskers can reach over a foot in length, creating a sensory net that extends well beyond the seal's head. Hooded seals inflate balloon-like sacs from their noses during mating displays, creating red or pink inflatable hoods that can be larger than footballs. Males also produce haunting underwater calls that carry for miles through the Arctic Ocean, serenading potential mates with songs that sound almost otherworldly when heard through hydrophones. Arctic foxes follow polar bears across sea ice, scavenging from seal kills and surviving in one of Earth's harshest environments. Their fur changes color seasonally, from brown in summer to pure white in winter, providing perfect camouflage against both tundra and snow. Some Arctic foxes travel over 2,000 miles during winter hunting trips, crossing frozen seas to reach distant islands. Snowy owls hunt lemmings and other small mammals across the Arctic tundra, their silent flight and keen eyesight making them formidable predators. During years when prey is abundant, these magnificent birds can raise broods of up to 11 chicks. In lean years, they may not breed at all, demonstrating how Arctic wildlife has adapted to boom and bust cycles. Caribou migrate in herds that can number in the hundreds of thousands, following ancient routes across tundra and frozen rivers. Their migrations represent some of the longest land-based movements of any mammal, with some herds traveling over 3,000 miles annually. Their hooves are specially adapted for different seasons, spreading wide on soft tundra in summer and hardening for traction on ice and snow in winter. Musk oxen form defensive circles when threatened, their thick coats and curved horns creating an impenetrable barrier against predators. These living remnants of the Ice Age produce some of the finest natural insulation in the animal kingdom. Their undercoat, called kiviot, is 8 times warmer than sheep's wool and softer than cashmere. The Antarctic Ocean supports the largest aggregations of marine life on Earth, despite its extreme conditions. Krill swarms in these frigid waters can extend for miles and contain billions of individual crustaceans. These small, shrimp-like creatures form the foundation of Antarctic food webs, supporting everything from tiny fish to the largest whales. Emperor penguins endure the harshest winter conditions of any bird, incubating their eggs on sea ice during Antarctic winter, when temperatures can drop to -40 degrees Fahrenheit. Males fast for over 4 months while keeping eggs warm on their feet, losing up to 45% of their body weight during this extraordinary parental sacrifice. Adelie penguins build nests from small stones, carefully selecting and arranging pebbles to create elevated platforms that protect their eggs from meltwater. These industrious birds have been observed stealing stones from neighbouring nests, leading to penguin disputes over the most desirable building materials. Leopard seals patrol the edges of ice floes, using their powerful jaws and sharp teeth to hunt everything from krill to young penguins. These solitary predators possess surprising agility in water, capable of launching themselves completely out of the water to snatch prey from ice edges. Despite their fearsome reputation, leopard seals also feed extensively on krill, using their teeth as filters to strain these small crustaceans from the water. Weddell seals dive deeper and stay underwater longer than almost any other seal species, with some dives lasting over an hour at depths exceeding 2,000 feet. They maintain breathing holes in sea ice by gnawing with their teeth, a behaviour that eventually wears their teeth down, but allows them to survive in areas where other seals cannot. Ross seals produce some of the most unusual vocalizations in the animal kingdom, making sounds that have been compared to everything from sirens to science fiction sound effects. These elusive seals are rarely seen by humans, spending most of their lives in the densest pack ice where few researchers can follow. Crab-eater seals don't actually eat crabs, but instead feed almost exclusively on krill, using specially adapted teeth to filter these small crustaceans from the water. Despite their misleading name, they represent one of the most abundant large mammals on Earth, with populations estimated in the millions throughout Antarctic waters. Southern elephant seals undertake some of the deepest and longest dives of any marine mammal, regularly reaching depths of over 5,000 feet and staying underwater for over 2 hours. Adult males can weigh over 8,000 pounds, making them the largest pinnipeds in the world. Their massive size helps them survive months-long fasting periods during breeding season. Wandering albatrosses possess the longest wingspan of any living bird, with some individuals reaching wingspans of over 11 feet. These masters of flight can glide for hours without flapping their wings, using dynamic soaring techniques to extract energy from wind patterns above the ocean surface. They may fly hundreds of miles in a single day while searching for food across vast expanses of open ocean. Antarctic petrels nest on nunataks, isolated mountain peaks that protrude through the ice sheet, creating some of the most remote breeding colonies on Earth. These hardy seabirds can survive in conditions where temperatures never rise above freezing, raising their chicks on bare rock surrounded by ice that may be thousands of feet thick. Snow petrels are among the most southerly breeding birds in the world, nesting within just a few hundred miles of the South Pole. Their pure white plumage provides perfect camouflage against ice and snow, while their tube-shaped nostrils help them process salt from their marine diet. Antarctic fur seals were nearly extinct by the early 1900s due to hunting, but have recovered dramatically, with some colonies now numbering in the hundreds of thousands. These remarkable animals can dive to depths of over 600 feet while hunting for krill, fish, and squid in the rich waters surrounding Antarctic islands. Minke whales are the smallest baleen whales in Antarctic waters, but make up for their size with remarkable agility and speed. They can accelerate rapidly to escape predators and are capable of complex underwater maneuvers that larger whales cannot perform. Their relatively small size allows them to penetrate deeper into pack ice than other baleen whale species. Blue whales, the largest animals ever known to exist, feed almost exclusively on krill in Antarctic waters during summer months. A single blue whale can consume up to 16 tons of krill per day, using their massive tongues and throat pleats to process enormous volumes of water. Their hearts alone can weigh as much as small cars, pumping blood through bodies that can exceed 100 feet in length. Humpback whales produce some of the most complex songs in the animal kingdom, with compositions that can last over 30 minutes and be heard across entire ocean basins. These songs change over time, with new phrases and themes spreading through whale populations like musical fashions. Each population has its own distinct song that evolves continuously as whales add new elements and drop others. Right whales got their name from whalers who considered them the right whales to hunt because they floated when killed and contained large amounts of valuable oil. These massive whales can weigh over 140,000 pounds and possess some of the largest heads in the animal kingdom, making up about 1/3 of their total body length. Fin whales are the second largest whale species and among the fastest, capable of reaching speeds of over 25 miles per hour. They possess asymmetrical coloration, with the right side of their jaw being white, while the left side remains dark. This unusual feature may help them when feeding, creating a confusing visual effect that makes it easier to capture schooling fish. Sei whales are among the most streamlined of all baleen whales, with sleek bodies designed for speed and efficiency. They often feed near the surface on copepods and small schooling fish, using their baleen plates to filter enormous volumes of water. Their feeding behavior creates distinctive surface disturbances that can be observed from great distances. Sperm whales possess the largest brains of any animal on Earth, weighing up to 17 pounds and containing complex folded structures that may enable sophisticated echolocation abilities. These deep-diving giants can hold their breath for over 2 hours while hunting for giant squid in the deepest parts of the ocean. Pilot whales are actually large dolphins that travel in tight-knit family groups called pods. These highly social animals demonstrate remarkable cooperation, with entire pods sometimes stranding themselves on beaches when following a disoriented leader. Their complex social bonds and communication systems rival those of terrestrial mammals. Orcas, despite being called killer whales, are actually the largest members of the dolphin family. Different populations have developed distinct hunting strategies and cultural traditions that are passed down through generations. Some orcas specialize in hunting marine mammals, while others feed primarily on fish, with these dietary preferences creating distinct ecotypes that rarely interbreed. Beluga whales are born dark grey and gradually turn white as they mature, developing the distinctive coloration that gives them their name. These Arctic specialists possess flexible necks that allow them to turn their heads in ways impossible for most whales, helping them navigate through ice-filled waters and tight underwater spaces. Narwhals gather in large pods during migration, creating spectacular aggregations that can number in the thousands. These Arctic unicorns use echolocation clicks that are among the most directional of any whale species, allowing them to navigate through maze-like ice formations with remarkable precision. The Southern Ocean Current flows continuously around Antarctica, connecting the Atlantic, Pacific, and Indian Oceans in the world's longest current system. This massive river of water transports more water than any other current on Earth, carrying nutrients and marine life across vast distances while helping to drive global ocean circulation patterns. Krill undergo vertical migrations that represent some of the largest movements of biomass on the planet. Each night, billions of these small crustaceans rise from deep waters to feed near the surface, then descend again before dawn. This daily migration transfers enormous amounts of nutrients between different ocean layers and provides food for countless predators. Antarctic krill can live for over 5 years and reach lengths of over 2 inches, making them giants among the zooplankton community. They possess some of the most sophisticated swimming abilities of any small crustacean, using their numerous swimming legs to maintain precise positions in the water column while feeding on phytoplankton. Salps are barrel-shaped planktonic animals that can form chains hundreds of feet long, creating some of the most unusual aggregations in the ocean. These transparent creatures reproduce both them to take advantage of favorable sexually and asexually, allowing conditions by rapidly increasing their numbers through clonal reproduction. Antarctic toothfish, also known as Chilean sea bass in restaurants, can live for over 50 years and grow to lengths of over 6 feet. These cold water giants possess antifreeze proteins that prevent ice crystals from forming in their blood, allowing them to thrive in some of the coldest waters on Earth. Icefish have evolved one of the most remarkable adaptations in the vertebrate world, living without red blood cells or the oxygen-carrying protein hemoglobin. Their blood appears clear or pale yellow, and they rely on dissolved oxygen in their plasma to meet their metabolic needs. This unusual adaptation works because cold water holds more dissolved oxygen than warm water. Antarctic silverfish form the backbone of many polar food webs, despite being relatively small fish. They possess sophisticated antifreeze adaptations and can survive being temporarily frozen in ice, emerging unharmed when conditions improve. Their abundance makes them crucial prey for seals, penguins, and other Antarctic predators. Colossal squid represents some of the largest invertebrates on Earth, with specimens reaching estimated lengths of over 40 feet, including their tentacles. These deep-sea giants possess rotating hooks on their tentacles that can inflict serious damage on any creature unfortunate enough to encounter them. Their eyes are among the largest in the animal kingdom, reaching diameters of over 10 inches. Giant tube worms in Antarctic waters can live for decades in the cold, nutrient-poor conditions surrounding hydrothermal vents. These remarkable creatures have no mouth or digestive system, instead relying entirely on symbiotic bacteria to convert chemicals from the vents into usable energy. Sea spiders in Antarctic waters often exhibit gigantism, growing to sizes that would be impossible for their relatives in warmer climates. Some Antarctic sea spiders have leg spans exceeding 18 inches, making them among the largest arthropods in polar waters. Their huge legs help distribute their weight across soft sediments, while their slow metabolism allows them to survive in the nutrient-poor deep sea. Antarctic scale worms can survive being frozen solid and then thawed repeatedly, making them among the most freeze-tolerant animals known to science. These remarkable polychaete worms produce antifreeze compounds and can actually control the formation of ice crystals in their tissues to prevent cellular damage. Polar cod schools can contain millions of individual fish, creating underwater clouds of silver that attract predators from throughout the Arctic food web. These hardy fish can survive in water temperatures just above the freezing point of seawater, using antifreeze proteins to prevent ice formation in their blood and tissues. Arctic char display remarkable diversity in their life histories, with some populations spending their entire lives in fresh water, while others migrate to the sea. These adaptable fish can survive in conditions ranging from just above freezing to relatively warm summer temperatures, demonstrating flexibility that has allowed them to colonize habitats throughout the Arctic. Greenland halibut are among the most widely distributed fish in Arctic waters, found at depths ranging from shallow coastal areas to over 7,000 feet deep. These flatfish can live for over 30 years and reach lengths of over 4 feet, making them important predators in Arctic marine ecosystems. Arctic skate lay their eggs in cases that can take over 4 years to hatch, representing one of the longest incubation periods of any fish species. These cartilaginous fish have adapted to the extreme seasonal variations in Arctic waters, timing their reproduction to take advantage of brief periods of increased food availability. As we drift through these polar realms, where ice and water dance their eternal ballet, the resilience of life becomes ever more apparent. In conditions that would challenge the most sophisticated human technology, countless species have found ways not just to survive, but to thrive. The slow rhythm of polar seasons, the patient accumulation of ice and its eventual retreat, And the ancient migrations that connect these frozen worlds to the rest of our planet create a symphony of adaptation that has played for millions of years. These polar waters remind us that life finds a way to flourish even in Earth's most challenging environments, creating beauty and complexity in places where logic might suggest only emptiness could exist. As the gentle currents carry us onward through our oceanic journey, we begin to understand that the ocean's true magic lies not just in its vastness or its mysteries, but in its infinite capacity to nurture life in all its remarkable forms. The abyssal plains stretch endlessly across the deep ocean floor, covering more surface area than all the continents combined. These underwater deserts lie beneath miles of water, blanketed in sediment so fine they've been settling for millions of years. Each grain of this deep sea dust tells a story, carrying within it the remains of microscopic creatures that lived and died in surface waters eons ago, drifting downward through the darkness like snow that never stops falling. Across these vast flatlands, the temperature remains constant at just above freezing, creating one of the most stable environments on our planet. The pressure here exceeds 300 times what we experience at sea level, yet life persists in forms so delicate they seem impossible. Sea cucumbers crawl across the sediment like underwater vacuum cleaners, processing the seafloor and extracting nutrients from particles too small to see. Xenophyophores construct elaborate homes from the very sediments they live upon. These single-celled giants, some larger than dinner plates, represent the ultimate architects of the deep. Using pseudopodia like microscopic hands, they gather particles of sand, shell fragments, and organic debris, cementing them together with secretions to create structures of surprising complexity and beauty. These living mansions provide shelter for countless smaller organisms, turning barren seafloor into bustling communities. Deep sea mushrooms, among the most recent discoveries in marine biology, challenge our understanding of life itself. These mysterious organisms defy classification, possessing characteristics that don't fit neatly into the plant, animal, or fungal kingdoms. They anchor themselves to the abyssal seafloor and extend feeding structures into the water column, filtering nutrients from the perpetual marine snow that drifts down from above. The discovery of these enigmatic creatures reminds us how much remains unknown in the deep ocean. Each expedition to the abyss returns with species never before seen, organisms that have evolved in isolation for millions of years. Some possess features so unusual that scientists must create entirely new categories to describe them, expanding our definition of what life can become. Glass sponge gardens create underwater forests in the darkness, their silica skeletons forming intricate lacework that filters enormous volumes of water. A single large glass sponge can process thousands of gallons each day, extracting microscopic food particles while building its crystalline structure one spicule at a time. These patient architects work so slowly that individual sponges may be thousands of years old, making them among the most ancient living structures on Earth. The skeletons of dead glass sponges persist for centuries on the seafloor, creating three-dimensional habitats that shelter countless other organisms. Fish weave between the glassy branches, while smaller invertebrates make homes in the countless crevices and chambers. These sponge reefs transform flat, seemingly lifeless areas into complex ecosystems teeming with hidden activity. Dumbo octopuses drift through the deep like living umbrellas, their ear-like fins propelling them gracefully through the crushing depths. These deepest-dwelling octopuses have abandoned the typical octopus lifestyle of hiding in crevices, instead embracing a life of perpetual motion in the open water. Their translucent bodies pulse with gentle grace as they search for small crustaceans and worms in the darkness. Their large eyes capture even the faintest traces of bioluminescent light, while their webbed arms create nets for trapping prey. Unlike their shallow water relatives, Dumbo octopuses cannot change color dramatically, instead displaying subtle patterns of pale pink and white that help them blend with the faint light filtering down from far above. Barrelet fish possess transparent heads that allow their tubular eyes to rotate upward, scanning the water above for silhouettes of prey against the faint downwelling light. This remarkable adaptation gives them a 360-degree view of their environment while protecting their delicate eyes within a fluid-filled, transparent dome. When they spot potential prey, they can rotate their entire bodies to position themselves for an ambush. These living submarines demonstrate the incredible innovations that evolution has produced in the deep sea. Their see-through heads seem like science fiction, yet they represent practical solutions to the challenges of hunting in an environment where food is scarce and predators lurk in every shadow. Anglerfish species display some of the most extreme sexual dimorphism in the animal kingdom. In many deep-sea species, males are tiny compared to females, sometimes no larger than a human thumb. These diminutive males live parasitic lives, biting onto females and eventually fusing permanently with their bodies. The male's tissues merge with the female's, and he becomes little more than a sperm-producing organ, ensuring reproduction in an environment where finding a mate might otherwise be nearly impossible. This bizarre reproductive strategy solves the fundamental problem of deep-sea life: how to find a partner in the vastness of the abyss. By becoming permanently attached, pairs ensure they can reproduce whenever conditions are favorable, without the need to search through miles of empty water for a compatible mate. Cookie-cutter sharks patrol the deep ocean like living cookie cutters, taking perfect circular plugs of flesh from whales, dolphins, and large fish. These small sharks possess specialized teeth and powerful suction that allow them to attach briefly to much larger animals, twist their bodies to carve out a neat chunk of tissue, and then disappear back into the darkness. Their victims often survive these encounters, left with distinctive scars that scientists use to study shark distribution and behavior. The precision of these attacks demonstrates remarkable adaptation to a specialized feeding niche. Cookie-cutter sharks have found a way to exploit the largest animals in the ocean without the need to overpower or kill them, taking just enough to survive while allowing their living food sources to continue on their journeys. Bioluminescent jellies create living fireworks displays in the deep ocean, their transparent bells pulsing with waves of blue and green light. These ethereal creatures use their light shows for multiple purposes: startling predators, attracting prey, and communicating with potential mates across the vast darkness. Some species can produce complex patterns of flashing lights, creating underwater Morse code that carries messages through the liquid medium. The chemistry behind their light production involves specialized cells called photophores, each containing the molecular machinery needed to convert chemical energy into visible light. The efficiency of this biological lighting system far exceeds any human technology, producing light with virtually no heat waste in a process that continues to inspire biomimetic research. Vampire squid represent living fossils possessing characteristics of both squid and octopus, while belonging fully to neither group. When threatened, they turn themselves inside out, displaying dark, spiny surfaces covered with light-producing photophores. This defensive transformation makes them appear larger and more threatening, while the bioluminescent displays may confuse or frighten potential predators. These remarkable cephalopods inhabit the oxygen minimum zones of the deep ocean, regions where dissolved oxygen levels drop so low that most other animals cannot survive. Their blood contains specialized proteins that allow them to extract oxygen from water where other creatures would suffocate, giving them access to habitats unavailable to most predators. Deep-sea chimeras glide through the abyss like underwater dragons, their cartilaginous skeletons and wing-like pectoral fins giving them an otherworldly appearance. These ancient fish more closely related to sharks than to bony fish, possess venomous spines and electroreceptive organs that help them navigate and hunt in the darkness. Some species have evolved elaborate head ornaments and modifications that make them among the most bizarre-looking fish in the ocean. Their slow, deliberate movements conserve energy in an environment where food is scarce and every calorie must be carefully managed. They feed primarily on bottom-dwelling invertebrates, using their crushing tooth plates to process hard-shelled prey that other deep-sea fish cannot handle. Tripod fish stand motionless on the seafloor, using elongated fin rays as stilts, waiting patiently for small crustaceans and other prey to drift within striking distance. These living tripods can maintain their positions in strong bottom currents, their modified fins acting as anchors while they face into the flow to intercept food particles carried by the water. This sit-and-wait strategy represents an extreme adaptation to the food-poor environment of the deep sea. By remaining stationary, tripod fish expend minimal energy while maximizing their chances of encountering the sparse prey that characterizes their habitat. Giant isopods scuttle across the deep sea floor like armored tanks, their segmented bodies and powerful claws making them formidable scavengers. These oversized relatives of terrestrial pillbugs can survive without food for months or even years, entering states of near dormancy when prey becomes scarce. When food does become available, they can consume enormous quantities, sometimes eating so much they become temporarily unable to move. Their ability to gorge and then fast for extended periods represents a crucial adaptation to the feast or famine existence of deep-sea scavengers. When a whale carcass or other large food source reaches the seafloor, giant isopods can consume enough to sustain them through long periods of scarcity. Deep-sea worms tunnel through seafloor sediments like underground miners, processing organic matter and creating burrow systems that can extend several feet into the bottom. These ecosystem engineers play crucial roles in seafloor ecology, mixing sediments and creating microhabitats that support diverse communities of bacteria and smaller invertebrates. Some deep-sea worms construct tubes from secreted materials, creating underwater apartment buildings that house multiple species. These polychaete architects demonstrate remarkable engineering abilities, constructing structures that withstand strong currents while providing protection from predators and optimal positioning for filter feeding. Basket stars unfurl their branching arms like living fractals, creating intricate nets that can span several feet across. These relatives of sea stars possess arms that divide repeatedly, creating hundreds of delicate feeding appendages that capture small plankton and organic particles from the water column. When threatened, they can rapidly coil their arms into tight balls, transforming from expansive nets into compact defensive spheres. Their mathematical precision in arm branching follows patterns that maximize surface area while maintaining structural strength, demonstrating how evolutionary processes can arrive at solutions that mirror sophisticated engineering principles. Deep-sea sea lilies anchor themselves to hard surfaces and extend feathery arms into passing currents, filtering microscopic food particles from the water like underwater flowers. These living fossils have remained virtually unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, their elegant forms representing one of evolution's most successful designs. Some species can detach from their stalks and swim gracefully through the water when conditions require relocation. Their fossil record extends back to some of the earliest complex ecosystems on Earth, making them witnesses to the entire history of complex marine life. Modern sea lily communities provide glimpses into ancient seafloor ecosystems that dominated the oceans long before fish or marine mammals evolved. Snailfish inhabit the deepest trenches, holding current records for the deepest living vertebrates ever discovered. These gelatinous fish lack swim bladders entirely, their bodies adapted to function under pressures that would instantly crush surface-dwelling species. Their bones contain minimal calcium, giving them a somewhat liquid consistency that helps them withstand the crushing weight of miles of water above. Recent expeditions have discovered snailfish living at depths exceeding 26,000 feet, in trenches where the pressure reaches over 1,000 times atmospheric pressure at sea level. These remarkable fish demonstrate that vertebrate life can adapt to even the most extreme conditions on our planet. Cusk eels burrow into seafloor sediments, creating hidden networks of tunnels and chambers beneath the abyssal plains. These elongated fish can disappear completely into soft sediments, emerging only to ambush passing prey. Their ability to construct and navigate complex burrow systems demonstrates sophisticated spatial memory and engineering abilities. Some species of cusk eels have been found living in underwater caves and crevices at record depths, proving that fish can colonize virtually every available habitat in the deep ocean. Their success in these extreme environments shows how vertebrates can adapt to conditions that seem impossible for complex life. Hadal zone communities exist in the deepest parts of ocean trenches, where crushing pressure and isolation have created unique evolutionary laboratories. These deepest ecosystems on Earth support species found nowhere else, many of which have evolved unusual adaptations to survive in conditions more extreme than those found on many other planets. They often display characteristics not organisms living in these deepest places seen in any other environment on Earth. Some have developed unique metabolic pathways, while others have evolved body structures that seem to defy the normal rules of biology. Each trench system contains its own endemic species, suggesting that these deep valleys act as isolated islands of evolution. Organic matter in the deep sea decomposes incredibly slowly due to cold temperatures and low oxygen levels. A piece of wood that falls to the abyssal seafloor may persist for decades, slowly being colonized by specialized bacteria and invertebrates that can break down cellulose and lignin in the deep sea environment. These woodfalls create temporary ecosystems similar to whale falls, supporting communities of organisms that specialize in processing organic material from the surface world. The slow decomposition means that these food sources can sustain communities for much longer than similar resources would last in shallow waters. Pressure-loving bacteria, called piezophiles, thrive under conditions that would instantly kill surface-dwelling microorganisms. These remarkable organisms have evolved specialized proteins and cellular structures that not only tolerate extreme pressure, but actually require it to function properly. When brought to the surface, many deep-sea bacteria die from decompression, unable to survive in the low-pressure environment we consider normal. The discovery of piezophilic bacteria has expanded our understanding of life's limits and has important implications for the search for life in extreme environments elsewhere in the universe. These organisms demonstrate that high pressure, rather than being a barrier to life, can actually provide the stable conditions that some forms of life prefer. Deep-sea mining threatens to disrupt ecosystems that have remained stable for millions of years. The slow growth rates and extreme specialization of deep-sea organisms make them particularly vulnerable to disturbance. Species that take decades to reach maturity and reproduce infrequently may not be able to recover from large-scale habitat destruction. The deep-sea floor contains valuable mineral deposits, including manganese nodules, polymetallic sulfides, and rare earth elements. However, extracting these resources would inevitably impact ecosystems we barely understand, potentially driving species to extinction before we even discover them. Conservation of deep-sea habitats presents unique challenges due to their remoteness and the international nature of much of the deep ocean. Many deep-sea areas lie beyond national jurisdiction, requiring international cooperation to protect them from exploitation. The extreme cost and technical difficulty of studying these environments means that many species and ecosystems may disappear before science has a chance to understand them. Deep-sea research continues to reveal new species and ecosystems at an astonishing rate. Every expedition to unexplored areas of the deep ocean discovers organisms never before seen by science. The rate of discovery suggests that millions of species remain unknown in the deep sea, representing one of the largest reservoirs of undiscovered biodiversity on our planet. New technologies, including autonomous underwater vehicles, advanced imaging systems, and genetic analysis techniques, are revolutionizing our ability to study deep-sea life. These tools allow scientists to observe deep-sea organisms in their natural habitats and to identify species relationships that were previously impossible to determine. The deep ocean connects all parts of our planet through currents that transport nutrients, heat, and organisms across vast distances. Understanding these connections is crucial for predicting how changes in one part of the ocean's system might affect ecosystems thousands of miles away. The deep sea serves as a global circulatory system that influences climate, weather patterns, and marine productivity worldwide. As we continue our gentle descent through these deepest realms, the boundaries between the known and unknown become ever more fluid. In these remote depths, where pressure reaches crushing extremes and darkness reigns absolute, life has found ways to create beauty, complexity, and wonder that surpass our wildest imaginations. The patient rhythms of deep-sea existence, measured not in days or seasons, but in centuries and millennia, remind us that time moves differently in these ancient depths. Here, where the weight of the entire ocean presses down with unimaginable force, organisms have evolved solutions to challenges that push the very limits of what we thought life could endure. Their existence proves that our planet holds mysteries far deeper than we ever suspected, secrets written in bioluminescent ink across the darkness of the abyss. The deep ocean currents carry more than just water through these depths. They transport the memories of surface storms, the chemical signatures of distant continents, and the microscopic remains of countless generations of marine life. These ancient rivers flow through underwater canyons and across abyssal plains, connecting the deepest trenches to the sunlit surface in cycles that span centuries. Temperature gradients create invisible barriers and highways throughout the deep ocean, guiding the movements of creatures and nutrients along pathways established millions of years ago. These thermal boundaries shape ecosystems as surely as mountain ranges shape terrestrial landscapes, creating distinct zones where different communities of organisms flourish. The chemistry of deep water tells stories of journeys that began decades or centuries ago in distant polar regions. Oxygen levels, nutrient concentrations, and trace elements all carry the signatures of their origins, creating a liquid library that records the ocean's history in dissolved detail. Deep-sea organisms have learned to read these chemical signals, using them to navigate, find food, and locate suitable habitats in the darkness. Methane seeps bubble up from the seafloor like underwater hot springs, creating oases of chemical energy in the biological desert of the deep sea. These natural gas leaks support unique ecosystems based entirely on chemosynthesis, where bacteria convert methane and hydrogen sulfide into organic matter without any input from the sun's energy. Massive tube worms cluster around these seeps, their bodies housing billions of symbiotic bacteria that process the methane and share the resulting nutrients with their hosts. These partnerships between animals and bacteria represent some of the most intimate relationships in nature, with the bacteria living inside specialized organs within the worms' bodies. Clams and mussels at seep sites have also evolved partnerships with chemosynthetic bacteria, allowing them to thrive in environments where traditional filter feeding would provide insufficient nutrition. These mollusks can grow to enormous sizes, some reaching lengths of over a foot despite living in the food-poor deep sea. The slow, steady nature of cold seeps creates more stable ecosystems than the boom and bust cycles typical of hydrothermal vents. Some seep communities persist for hundreds of years, developing complex relationships between species and creating underwater oases that support remarkable what biodiversity in would otherwise be biological deserts. Bacterial mats carpet the seafloor around seeps in thick, colourful layers that can be seen from submersibles approaching these sites. These living carpets represent some of the most productive ecosystems in the deep ocean, converting chemical energy into biological matter at rates that rival tropical rainforests. The discovery of chemosynthetic ecosystems fundamentally changed our understanding of life's possibilities on Earth and beyond. These communities prove that life doesn't require sunlight to create complex, productive ecosystems. This revelation has profound implications for the search for life on other worlds, particularly those with subsurface oceans heated by geological processes. Hydrothermal vents create some of the most dramatic temperature gradients on Earth, with water temperatures reaching over 750 degrees Fahrenheit, just inches from near-freezing seawater. These extreme thermal boundaries create multiple microhabitats within small areas, each supporting different communities of specialized organisms. Vent shrimp possess modified eyes that can detect the infrared radiation emitted by hot vent water, allowing them to navigate the thermal landscape and position themselves in optimal temperature zones. These remarkable adaptations help them avoid the lethal heat of direct vent emissions, while staying close enough to benefit from the chemical energy these underwater geysers provide. Pompeii worms live closer to active vent openings than almost any other large organism, their bodies tolerating temperature differences that would kill most other animals. The head end of these remarkable worms may experience temperatures of over 175 degrees Fahrenheit, while their tail end remains in water barely above freezing. Scale worms cling to the sides of tube worms near vents, their bodies covered in specialized scales that help protect them from the extreme conditions. These small predators and scavengers have evolved unique adaptations that allow them to exploit the abundant food resources around vents while surviving in an environment that pushes the limits of what complex life can endure. Vent crabs scuttle across the mineral-rich surfaces around hydrothermal vents, their heat-resistant legs allowing them to venture closer to active venting than most other mobile animals. These specialized crustaceans feed on bacteria, organic debris, and smaller animals, playing crucial roles in vent food webs. The mineral deposits created by hydrothermal vents build underwater chimneys that can reach heights of several stories. These structures, composed of sulfides, sulfates, and other minerals, create complex three-dimensional habitats that support diverse communities of vent-adapted organisms. Black smokers spew dark clouds of mineral-rich water into the surrounding ocean, creating dramatic underwater geysers that can be seen from great distances. The particles in these plumes eventually settle to the seafloor, creating mineral deposits that may persist for thousands of years after the vents become inactive. White smokers produce clearer emissions, with different chemical compositions, supporting different communities of organisms than their black smoker counterparts. These variations in vent chemistry create diverse habitats within vent fields, each hosting its own specialized assemblage of life. The discovery of vent ecosystems in the 1970s ranks among the most significant biological discoveries of the 20th century. These findings revealed entire categories of life that had evolved independently of solar energy, fundamentally changing our understanding of how ecosystems can function. Vent communities serve as natural laboratories for studying evolution under extreme conditions. The isolation of individual vent sites and the boom and bust nature of vent activity create conditions that drive rapid evolutionary change, allowing scientists to observe evolutionary processes that might take much longer in more stable environments. The larvae of vent organisms must disperse across vast distances of inhospitable deep ocean to colonize new vent sites. This creates an underwater island-hopping existence where species must be able to survive long journeys through environments that cannot support adult populations. Some vent species have evolved remarkable dispersal abilities, with larvae that can survive for months in the plankton while searching for suitable new habitats. These long-lived larvae represent one of the few ways that vent organisms can maintain genetic connectivity across the scattered patches of suitable habitat in the deep ocean. As we drift through these realms of chemical energy and extreme temperatures, the ingenuity of life becomes ever more apparent. In places where the Earth's internal heat breaks through the seafloor, creating conditions that seem more suitable for geology than biology, life has not only found a foothold, but has created some of the most productive and diverse ecosystems in the deep ocean. These underwater oases remind us that life's creativity extends far beyond what we might imagine possible. In the crushing depths where sunlight has never penetrated, where temperatures fluctuate between freezing and scalding within the span of inches, and where chemistry becomes the source of all energy, evolution has crafted communities of surpassing beauty and complexity. The gentle rhythm of our journey through these deep waters carries us past wonders that challenge every assumption about life's limits. Here, in Earth's most remote and extreme environments, we find not emptiness, but abundance, not simplicity, but sophistication, not barriers, but opportunities for life to explore new possibilities and create new forms of beauty. In the endless darkness of the deep, ocean trenches carve the deepest wounds in our planet's surface, creating valleys so profound that if Mount Everest were placed in the deepest point, its peak would still rest over a mile beneath the waves. These underwater canyons form where massive tectonic plates collide, one sliding beneath another in geological slow motion that has continued for millions of years. The grinding of rock against rock creates earthquakes that ripple through the ocean floor, while the deepest parts of these trenches remain among the most stable environments on Earth. The Mariana Trench stretches across the Pacific like a crescent-shaped scar over 1,500 miles long, yet only about 40 miles wide at its broadest point. Within this narrow depression lies Challenger Deep, the deepest known point in all the world's oceans. At nearly 7 miles below sea level, the pressure here exceeds 1,100 times what we experience at the surface, yet life persists even in these crushing depths. The Peru-Chile Trench extends along South America's western coast for over 3,700 miles, making it one of the longest continuous deep-sea features on our planet. This massive underwater canyon system remains largely unexplored, with scientists estimating that less than 1% of its vast expanse has been surveyed in detail. Each expedition to these remote depths returns with discoveries that challenge our understanding of life's possibilities. The Japan Trench gained tragic fame when movement along its edges generated the devastating earthquake and tsunami of 2011, reminding us that these deep ocean features remain intimately connected to life on land through the geological forces that shape our planet's surface. The same processes that create these deepest habitats also drive the volcanic activity and seismic events that affect millions of people living along ocean margins. Turbidity currents rush down the walls of ocean trenches like underwater avalanches, carrying sediments and organic matter from shallow waters into the deepest parts of the sea at speeds that can exceed 40 miles per hour. These powerful underwater rivers carve channels and canyons into the seafloor while providing food for trench ecosystems, creating temporary floods of nutrition in environments where sustenance typically arrives grain by grain. The walls of ocean trenches create their own weather systems as deep currents encounter these massive underwater barriers. Water flowing along the seafloor can be deflected upward along trench walls, creating upwelling zones that bring nutrients from the deepest waters towards shallower depths. These current patterns help explain why some trench systems support more abundant life than others. Amphipods in the deepest trenches have evolved into giants, with some species reaching lengths of over a foot compared to their shallow water relatives that rarely exceed an inch. These oversized crustaceans demonstrate how the extreme conditions of the deep ocean can drive evolutionary changes that seem to defy normal biological rules. Their success in these crushing depths shows that size advantages in the deep sea often overcome the metabolic costs of maintaining larger bodies. Xenophyophores reach their greatest sizes and diversity in ocean trenches, where these single-celled giants construct elaborate shells from sediment particles and organic debris. Some specimens found in the deepest parts of trenches exceed the size of dinner plates, making them among the largest single cells known to exist anywhere on Earth. Their intricate constructions provide microhabitats for countless smaller organisms in environments where hard surfaces are extremely rare. Baited cameras lowered into ocean trenches reveal thriving communities of scavengers that gather whenever organic matter becomes available. Within hours of a bait package reaching the deepest sea floor, dozens of species appear from the apparent emptiness, demonstrating that these extreme depths support more life than their barren appearance might suggest. The rapid response of these deep-sea scavengers shows how efficiently nutrients are recycled in these food-poor environments. Snailfish dominate the deepest fish communities in ocean trenches, with different species adapted to specific depth ranges within these underwater canyons. The deepest living fish ever discovered belong to this family, found thriving at depths where the pressure would instantly crush most other vertebrates. Their success in these extreme environments has made them the undisputed champions of deep-sea fish survival. The deepest parts of ocean trenches experience temperature stability that rivals the most controlled laboratory conditions. Water temperatures in the Hadal zone vary by less than a degree throughout the year, creating environments where organisms can adapt to consistent conditions rather than dealing with the temperature fluctuations common in surface waters. This thermal stability may help explain how such specialized communities can evolve and persist in these remote depths. Sediment cores from ocean trenches reveal Earth's geological history stretching back millions of years, preserved in layers that accumulate grain by grain in the deepest parts of these underwater valleys. The slow sedimentation rates in these environments mean that each inch of sediment represents thousands of years of Earth's history, creating archives that help scientists understand how our planet's climate and oceans have changed over geological time. Unique minerals form in the crushing pressures of ocean trenches, creating crystalline structures that cannot exist under normal surface conditions. These high-pressure minerals provide clues about the conditions deep within our planet and may hold keys to understanding how similar processes might occur on other worlds with different atmospheric pressures. The isolation of individual ocean trenches has created evolutionary laboratories, where species develop in complete separation from their relatives in other deep-sea environments. Each major trench system contains endemic species found nowhere else on Earth, suggesting that these deep valleys act as islands of evolution, where life can explore new possibilities without interference from outside populations. Microbial communities in ocean trenches process organic matter under some of the most extreme conditions on our planet, breaking down complex molecules at pressures and temperatures that would denature most biological processes. These pressure-loving bacteria have evolved specialized enzymes and cellular structures that not only tolerate but actually require extreme conditions to function properly. The deepest trenches may serve as refugia for ancient forms of life, preserving evolutionary lineages that have been displaced from shallower environments by more recently evolved competitors. Some organisms found only in the deepest parts of trenches show characteristics that suggest they represent very early branches of their respective family trees, making them living fossils from Earth's biological past. Water circulation in ocean trenches follows patterns unlike anywhere else in the ocean, with dense cold water settling into these deep valleys and remaining there for decades or centuries. This sluggish circulation creates chemically distinct water masses in the deepest parts of trenches, with oxygen levels, nutrient concentrations, and other characteristics that differ markedly from the surrounding deep ocean. The discovery of active microbial communities in the deepest ocean sediments suggests that life may extend much deeper into our planet's crust than previously thought. Bacteria found in trench sediments can survive burial under hundreds of feet of accumulated material, raising questions about how deep into the Earth's interior life might persist. Earthquake activity along trench systems creates underwater landslides that can bury existing communities while simultaneously creating new habitats as fresh surfaces are exposed. These geological events represent both destruction and opportunity for trench ecosystems, with some organisms specialized to colonize the disturbed areas left behind by seismic activity. The pressure in the deepest trenches approaches conditions found deep within other planets, making these environments natural laboratories for studying how life might adapt to extreme conditions elsewhere in the solar system. The organisms thriving in these crushing depths provide insights into the possible forms life might take on worlds with very different environmental conditions than those found on Earth's surface. Hadal ecosystems represent the final frontier of life on our planet, existing under conditions more extreme than those found in outer space. The crushing pressure, eternal darkness, and isolation of these deepest environments have created biological communities unlike any others on Earth, filled with species that push the absolute limits of what life can endure. As we descend through these deepest valleys carved into our planet's surface, we encounter life forms that seem to belong to another world entirely. In these crushing depths where the weight of the entire ocean presses down with unimaginable force, evolution has created organisms so specialized and so perfectly adapted to their extreme environment that they could survive nowhere else on Earth. The patient accumulation of sediments, the slow circulation of ancient waters, and the rare arrival of organic matter from the surface world create rhythms of existence measured not in days or seasons, but in centuries and millennia. Here, in Earth's deepest reaches, time moves at geological speed, yet life continues its endless dance of adaptation and survival. The gentle currents that flow through these deepest canyons carry with them the chemical signatures of water that began its journey at the surface decades or centuries ago. This ancient water, enriched with dissolved minerals and depleted of oxygen during its long journey through the depths, provides the chemical foundation for ecosystems that exist in complete independence from the sunlit world above. In these trenches where our planet's crust bends and breaks under unimaginable forces, where darkness has reigned unchanged for millions of years, and where pressure reaches levels that challenge the very chemistry of life itself, we find not emptiness, but abundance, not simplicity, but complexity, not an ending, but a beginning of our understanding of what life can become. The abyssal depths hold secrets that connect every part of our ocean system, from the smallest bacterial communities to the largest currents that circle our planet. Deep-sea sediments accumulate like pages in Earth's history book, each layer recording changes in climate, ocean chemistry, and biological productivity that occurred thousands of years ago. Scientists drill into these underwater archives to reconstruct past ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and shifts in ocean circulation that shaped the world we know today. Manganese nodules grow on the seafloor like slow-motion crops, accumulating metals over millions of years around tiny objects such as shark teeth or fragments of ancient shells. These potato-shaped concretions contain valuable elements including copper, nickel, and cobalt, but their incredibly slow formation rate means that harvesting them would essentially mine resources that took millennia to develop. The ecosystems that have grown around these nodule fields remain largely unstudied and could be destroyed by mining operations before science has a chance to understand them. Seamounts rise from the abyssal plains like underwater mountains, their peaks creating upwelling zones that bring nutrients from deep waters toward the surface. These isolated underwater peaks often support unique ecosystems with endemic species that evolved in isolation on individual seamounts. Deep-sea corals and sponge gardens crown many of these underwater mountains, creating three-dimensional habitats that support diverse communities in what would otherwise be relatively barren deep ocean. The Empress Seamount chain extends across thousands of miles of the Pacific Ocean, representing a conveyor belt of volcanic activity that has created underwater mountains over millions of years. Each seamount in this chain tells the story of the Pacific Plate's movement over a stationary hotspot deep in Earth's mantle. creating a timeline of geological activity written in volcanic rock beneath the waves. Guyot, flat-topped seamounts that once reached the ocean surface as volcanic islands, now lie submerged beneath hundreds or thousands of feet of water. These drowned islands were eroded flat by wave action when they existed at sea level, then carried to deeper waters by the movement of tectonic plates. Their flat tops provide stable platforms for deep-sea communities in environments where level surfaces are extremely rare. Carbonate ooze covers vast areas of the deep-sea floor, composed primarily of the microscopic shells of planktonic organisms that lived and died in surface waters millions of years ago. This biological sediment can reach thicknesses of hundreds of feet in some areas, representing countless generations of microscopic marine life that extracted calcium carbonate from seawater to build their tiny homes. Siliceous ooze forms in different regions of the deep ocean, composed mainly of the glass-like shells of diatoms and radiolarians. These microscopic organisms create intricate skeletal structures from dissolved silica, producing some of the most beautiful and complex forms found in nature. When these organisms die, their shells drift to the seafloor where they accumulate in layers that preserve detailed records of past ocean conditions. Red clay covers the deepest parts of the ocean floor, in areas far from continents and below the depth where carbonate shells dissolve in the corrosive deep water. This fine sediment accumulates incredibly slowly, sometimes taking thousands of years to build up layers just inches thick. The extreme slow sedimentation means that objects on the deep sea floor can remain exposed for millions of years, creating conditions unlike anywhere else on Earth. Turbidite deposits record catastrophic underwater avalanches that occurred thousands or millions of years ago when earthquakes or other disturbances triggered massive sediment flows down continental slopes. These underwater landslides can travel for hundreds of miles across the deep ocean floor, carrying sand and organic matter from shallow coastal areas into the deepest parts of the sea. Contorite deposits form where deep sea currents flow along the seafloor for extended periods, sorting and depositing sediments in patterns that reveal the direction and strength of ancient current systems. These current-deposited sediments help scientists reconstruct how deep-sea circulation patterns have changed over geological time, providing insights into past climate changes and ocean dynamics. The carbonate compensation depth marks the level in the ocean where the pressure and chemistry of deep water causes calcium carbonate shells to dissolve faster than they can accumulate. Below this critical depth, the seafloor contains little or no carbonate material, creating distinct zones in deep-sea sediments that reflect the ocean's chemical stratification. Nepheloid layers consist of clouds of suspended particles that drift through the deep ocean like underwater dust storms. These particle-rich layers can extend for thousands of miles, transporting sediments and organic matter across entire ocean basins. The particles in these layers provide food for filter-feeding organisms throughout the deep sea, while slowly settling to add to the seafloor sediments. Oxygen minimum zones create layers in the deep ocean where dissolved oxygen concentrations drop to levels that can only support specially adapted organisms. These zones, typically found at intermediate depths between the surface and the deepest waters, act as barriers that separate different deep-sea communities and influence the distribution of many marine species. Brine pools form on the seafloor where highly saline water, often associated with salt deposits or hydrothermal activity, creates underwater lakes denser than the surrounding seawater. These brine pools can be toxic to most marine life, creating underwater dead zones, while others support unique chemosynthetic communities adapted to their extreme salinity. The boundaries between different water masses in the deep ocean create invisible highways and barriers that influence the distribution of nutrients, dissolved gases, and marine organisms. These frontal zones, marked by changes in temperature, salinity, or chemical composition, often concentrate marine life and create important feeding areas for deep-sea animals. Methane hydrates, sometimes called fire ice, form in deep-sea sediments where low temperatures and high pressures create conditions that allow methane gas to form crystalline structures with water molecules. These deposits represent enormous reserves of natural gas, but their extraction could destabilize seafloor sediments and release large quantities of methane into the atmosphere. Cold seeps occur, where hydrocarbons leak from seafloor sediments, creating oases of chemical energy that support unique ecosystems based on chemosynthetic bacteria. Unlike the dramatic eruptions of hydrothermal vents, cold seeps release their chemicals slowly and steadily over decades or centuries, creating more stable ecosystems that can persist for hundreds of years. Pockmarks cover large areas of the seafloor, creating crater-like depressions formed by the escape of fluids from beneath the sediment surface. These circular features can range from a few feet to hundreds of yards in diameter, and their formation continues to puzzle scientists studying the dynamic processes that shape the deep ocean floor. The deep scattering layer represents one of the largest migrations on Earth, as billions of small organisms rise from deep waters to feed near the surface each night, then return to the depths before dawn. This massive vertical movement of biomass transfers nutrients between different layers of the ocean and creates acoustic layers so dense that early sonar operators mistook them for the seafloor itself. Deep-sea mining operations threaten to disrupt ecosystems that have remained stable for millions of years, potentially destroying unique habitats before scientists have a chance to study them. The slow growth rates and extreme specialization of deep-sea organisms make them particularly vulnerable to disturbance, as species that take decades to reach maturity may not be able to recover from large-scale habitat destruction. The deepest parts of our oceans remain less explored than the surface of Mars, with vast areas of the seafloor never seen by human eyes or cameras. New species are discovered on virtually every expedition to previously unexplored deep-sea areas, suggesting that millions of organisms remain unknown in these remote depths. Autonomous underwater vehicles now allow scientists to study deep-sea environments for extended periods, revealing behaviors and ecological interactions that were impossible to observe during brief submersible dives. These robotic explorers can remain in the deep sea for months at a time, providing continuous observations of deep-sea life and environmental conditions. Deep-sea coral reefs create underwater cities in the darkness, with some reef systems extending for miles across the seafloor. These cold-water corals grow incredibly slowly, with individual colonies potentially living for thousands of years. Their three-dimensional structures provide essential habitat for countless other organisms, creating biodiversity hotspots in the otherwise relatively sparse deep-sea environment. As our journey through the deep ocean continues, we begin to understand that these remote depths represent not empty voids, but complex, interconnected systems that influence every aspect of our planet's function. The slow circulation of deep waters, the patient accumulation of sediments, and the ancient rhythms of deep-sea life create patterns that connect the deepest trenches to the sunlit surface, in cycles measured not in days or seasons, but in centuries and millennia. In these depths where pressure reaches crushing extremes and darkness reigns absolute, life has not merely survived but has created beauty, complexity, and wonder that surpass our ability to imagine. The gentle fall of marine snow, the patient growth of glass sponge gardens, and the slow dance of deep-sea currents remind us that time moves differently in these ancient realms, where the rhythms of existence are measured by the heartbeat of the planet itself. The deep ocean serves as our planet's memory, preserving in its sediments and water masses the history of climate changes, volcanic eruptions, and biological evolution that shape the world we inhabit today. As we drift through these liquid archives, we begin to appreciate that understanding the deep sea is essential to understanding Earth itself, for these remote depths hold the keys to our planet's past, and perhaps its future as well. The twilight zone of the ocean creates a realm of perpetual dusk, where the last traces of sunlight fade into blue-black mystery. Here, in waters stretching from roughly 650 feet to 3,300 feet deep, creatures exist in a world of eternal twilight. where the distinction between day and night becomes measured not by the presence or absence of light, but by subtle changes in the faint illumination filtering down from far above. This dim realm supports some of the ocean's most remarkable adaptations, as life has learned to make the most of the precious few photons that manage to penetrate this deep. Many twilight zone inhabitants possess eyes larger than any surface-dwelling creature, evolved to capture every available particle of light in this shadowy realm. These enormous eyes, sometimes taking up a third of an animal's head, represent evolutionary investments in vision that would seem excessive anywhere else but prove essential in this light-starved environment. Some species have developed eyes so sensitive they can detect bioluminescence from other creatures miles away, turning the faint glow of distant organisms into navigation beacons in the liquid darkness. The boundary between the twilight zone and the midnight zone below represents one of the most significant transitions in the ocean, marking the point where photosynthesis becomes impossible, and ecosystems must rely entirely on energy that drifts down from above or is created through chemosynthesis. This invisible barrier shapes the distribution of countless species and creates distinct communities adapted to either the faint light above or the absolute darkness below. Lanternfish dominate the twilight zone biomass, their small silvery bodies equipped with rows of photophores that create species-specific light patterns. These living constellations use their bioluminescent displays for recognition, mating, and protection, creating underwater light, shows that rival any terrestrial fireworks display. During their nightly migrations to surface waters, lanternfish transport more biomass vertically through the ocean than any other group of animals, making them crucial links in the global cycling of nutrients and energy. Counter-illumination represents one of the most sophisticated camouflage strategies in nature, employed by many twilight zone creatures to blend with the faint downwelling light. These animals produce light from photophores on their undersides that exactly matches the intensity and color of the light filtering down from above, making them nearly invisible when viewed from below. This biological cloaking device requires constant adjustment as light levels change throughout the day, demonstrating remarkable physiological control over bioluminescent output. Vampire squid inhabit the oxygen minimum zones within the twilight realm, regions where dissolved oxygen levels drop so low that most other animals cannot survive. These living fossils, neither true squid nor octopus, have evolved unique adaptations that allow them to extract oxygen from water where other creatures would suffocate. When threatened, they turn themselves completely inside out, displaying dark, spiny surfaces covered with bioluminescent photophores that create startling defensive displays. Siphonophores drift through twilight waters like living strings of pearls, their colonial bodies consisting of hundreds or thousands of specialized individuals working together as a single organism. Some species create chains over 150 feet long, making them among the longest creatures on Earth. Each individual in the colony has a specific function, with some dedicated to swimming, others to feeding, still others to reproduction or defense, creating floating cities of cooperative life. The daily vertical migration that occurs in the twilight zone represents the largest movement of biomass on our planet, as billions of organisms rise toward the surface each evening and descend again before dawn. This massive biological elevator transports nutrients, carbon, and energy between surface waters and the deep sea on a scale that influences global ocean chemistry and climate patterns. The synchronized nature of this migration creates acoustic layers so dense they once confused sonar operators who mistook them for false seafloors. Bristlemouth fish, despite being among the most abundant vertebrates on Earth, remain largely unknown to most people due to their small size and deep-sea habitat. These tiny predators possess huge mouths filled with needle-sharp teeth, perfectly adapted for capturing prey in an environment where every meal opportunity must be seized. Their abundance in twilight waters makes them crucial components of deep-sea food webs, supporting everything from larger fish to marine mammals that dive deep to feed. Hatchetfish employ some of the most sophisticated bioluminescent camouflage in the ocean, using rows of photophores along their undersides to match the intensity and wavelength of light filtering down from above. Their flattened, silvery bodies reflect what little light exists in their environment, while their precise control over bioluminescent output allows them to remain nearly invisible to predators lurking below. The twilight zone serves as a crucial nursery habitat for many species that spend their adult lives in different parts of the ocean. Young fish, squid, and crustaceans often begin their lives in these dim waters before migrating to surface waters, the deep sea, or coastal environments as they mature. This nursery function makes the twilight zone essential for maintaining populations throughout the marine ecosystem. Jellies in the twilight zone create some of the most spectacular bioluminescent displays in the ocean, their transparent bells pulsing with waves of blue and green light. These ethereal creatures use their light shows for multiple purposes, from startling predators to attracting prey and communicating with potential mates across the vast liquid space. Some species can produce complex patterns of flashing lights, creating underwater Morse code that carries messages through the dim water. And now, as the deepest currents slow and our journey through these liquid realms draws toward its gentle close, you've drifted through wonders that stretch from sunlit shallows to crushing depths where few have ventured. We've explored coral cities and glass sponge gardens, witnessed the ancient migrations of whales and the patient dance of tides, discovered creatures that create their own light in eternal darkness, and partnerships that have endured for millions of years. These 100 oceanic secrets remind us that beneath the surface of our familiar world lies a realm of infinite mystery and beauty, where life has found ways to flourish in every possible niche, creating complexity and wonder beyond our deepest imagination. Rest now, carried by gentle currents toward peaceful sleep, knowing that somewhere far below, in the quiet darkness of the deep, these ancient rhythms continue their eternal dance through waters that have cradled life since time began. Ancient rhythms continue their eternal dance through waters that have cradled life since time began.